Hey besties, it's Sarah and Billy. Welcome back to my channel. I don't think she liked doing that introduction, but you know, sometimes you just gotta include your dog. Today we're gonna be talking about all the books I DNF'd in 2022. There were 10 books I DNF'd, and so I wanted to make a dedicated video to them because that was quite a lot of my reading. I finished 95 books, but I DNF'd 10. So if I had finished these, I literally would have read over 100 books. So I'm a little bitter. So I wanted to make a video dedicated to all these fails that ruined my reading challenge. The first book that I DNF'd in 2022 was Madam. I don't remember the author's name. I feel like her name's like Phoebe or something. This is a book about a woman who goes to be a teacher at this all-girls boarding school, I think in Scotland. It's like in the middle of nowhere. And when she gets there, there's like weird vibes going on and nobody will like answer her questions and all the students act really weird. It had very much like Catherine House vibes, and I did not personally like Catherine House, so that is not a really good comparison coming from me. You know when you check out an audiobook from the library and it's so boring that you put it down and you literally forget it's in your Libby app, and when you go back to Libby you see that it's expired and it goes back to the library and you literally just never check it out again? That's what happened with this book. Like, this one's biggest sin was being boring. It's meant to be kind of a thriller, dark academia, and it just wasn't giving the energy that I needed it to give. It was quite boring. I think I read probably like 25% of it, and then I literally just never got it from the library again, and I forgot that I even DNF'd it until I looked at my reading tracker where I keep all of the books that I've read and DNF'd this year, and I was like, oh yeah, that book, so boring. So we'll not be revisiting that, and I can't say I'd recommend it. The next book is The Help, which is by some white lady. I don't remember her name. I did see the movie with Emma Stone back in the day. I was trying to do a video earlier this year where I read the first ever Goodreads Choice Awards winners. I ended up abandoning this video idea because it just didn't really come together and it was kind of boring, and I felt like I couldn't really figure out how to title a video. I basically was just trying to read the first ever Goodreads Choice Awards winners, like from 2009, and then like decide if they were still good in like 2022. I ended up DNFing because of the white savior complex of it all. This book is just very much filled with caricatures of black women, and then there's like this white woman who is their savior. If you've seen the movie with Emma Stone, you're probably familiar with the plot. This book just does not have a lot to stand on. It just wasn't very good, and it perpetuates the mammy trope of black women, and I just personally did not want to be a part of it. So I was like, let me just put this away, DNF it, leave it in 2009 for all the white girlies back then who would enjoy it. To be honest, I maybe would have enjoyed it in 2009 as well, but I feel like I've learned, and I saw a lot of discourse about this online, and I was like, you know what? Let's not get into that. The next book on my list was a disappointment, and that is Unbury Carol by Josh Mellerman. I did a vlog where I was trying to read the lowest rated books on my TBR, and this had been on my TBR since like 2017 when it first got announced, and it was boring. This book is marketed as a horror book, but unfortunately it's more of a Western. It's about this woman who has this weird thing where she dies and falls into sleep comas, and so at the very start of the book her husband sort of like murders her, and so she's in one of these sleep comas, and then it's all about like what's going on around her while she's in this little bit of a coma, and there's a little bit of her perspective. I don't really know. Obviously I DNF'd it, so I don't really know where the story goes. Like I was saying, it's more of a Western. It's definitely giving more yeehaw vibes than like scary vibes, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't good, so I just simply did not put myself through it. I was like, let me DNF this. I wasted an Audible credit on this. That's how disappointing this was. I was very, very sad because I wanted to read another good book by Josh Mellerman. Next up, we have Stranger Still. This was a book that I picked up for a blind date with a book vlog, and it's a blind date that I wish I had never been set up on. I did not like it. I bought this on Etsy. I think I had bought like a horror-esque box, and this was the book that the woman sent, and the box itself, very cute. Thank you for the package, love to see it, but the book, it was bad. This is one of those self-published books where you go, I see why this is self-published. Like, I read a lot of indie and like self-published things, and a lot of times they're really good. Like Theft of Swords, one of the fantasy books that's on my top 10, originally was self-published, and it is iconic. It's so good. But this one, I see that we didn't have any gatekeepers or editors on it. It was just bad. It's about this guy who is sort of like an angel of death. He goes around inflicting punishment on people who he thinks deserve it. He sort of doles out justice. And so at the start of this book, we see him like in a gas station, and these people try to rob it, and he ends up like murdering them in a very grotesque way. And then we jump to this other storyline where this couple is getting kidnapped, and so then our main character, Legion, I think is his name, is like hunting them down. And then he also has like multiple personalities that he like talks to while he's doing all of this. And I read like 100 pages of it and I could not go any further. It is written so poorly. It's like really bad. Like, I don't know if it's meant to be a thriller, a horror, or what. Like, I can clearly see that the woman who gave it to me off Etsy had gotten it from like a discount bin or something, some surplus, something. I don't know. I feel like she got that book for like $1 because it was not good. It was not good. And there wasn't even an audiobook. I probably could have pushed through and forced myself to finish it and probably just rated it really low. Like, I would have done that for the vlog if there's been an audiobook, but because I had to physically read it, it's a no-go. It's a no-go, and I don't recommend it. It was really bad. The next book was unfortunately from the same vlog where I was doing blind dates with books. This was during Sara I, and I was like doing like a spooky vibe. And so I had picked like a thriller-esque one, and I got this book, House of Brines. This is a Australian book about this woman who is kind of down on her luck because she used to be a social media influencer, and she really like fucked something up and got really bad PR, so she sort of lost her entire platform. And so now she's living at home, and she's always had this interest in her mother's past because her mother is from the UK and she's from this estate. I don't remember the name of it, but she's from like this estate that's like well known for having all these different tragedies, all these things happening to the women who lived there. And so she has always wanted to go back ever since her mother passed away. She feels like it's her only connection to her. And so at the very start of the book, she gets a letter from her younger cousin that says like, please, can you come help us? And it's addressed to her mom. And so she's like, I have no money. I live at home, but perhaps I should steal my dad's credit card and go to the UK. And so it's all about her going over there to the estate and then kind of assimilating herself into their lives. She doesn't even tell them who she is, like she's related to the family, but she lies and says that she is the new nanny. And so she just sort of like starts working for them. And so a lot of the book is actually the day in and day out of her being a nanny. Like, there's actually multiple paragraphs about her making like sandwiches for the children. And the mystery itself just like was not compelling. Like, when she gets to the estate, the mother of the children is very MIA and everyone sort of doesn't really talk about her. She does meet her a few times, but she sort of like has issues and she's always away, and then she goes missing. But that doesn't happen until like halfway through the book. I would say I got like 50 to 75% through this, and the writing was so bad. I am shocked that this was traditionally published, and the woman who wrote it actually works in publishing, and I am bamboozled by that fact. Like, I could not believe that that woman works in publishing and then wrote that book and then got it published. Like, someone owed her a favor or something, because it is arguably one of the worst books that I've ever read in my life. It's told in first person and the main character is so insufferable. Like, she did something really bad to lose her social media platform, but she just keeps talking about like, oh, everybody hates me, I'm so sad. I'm like, perhaps you shouldn't have done the thing you did to get where you are. Like, she never takes responsibility for any of her actions. And also the way it's written is so confusing, because at times she's like, I have got no idea what's going on, this is so suspenseful and mysterious. And then other times she'll like meet a character and be like, that's how he always was, like that's how he is. And so I was like, okay, are you writing this from the perspective of we're in the future, like past this mystery, and you know what's happens and you're just telling us, or are you experiencing it with us? Like, the first person narrative was just very confusing. And so it was just a 0 to 10, do not recommend, really bad vibes. So I had to DNF because I was not going to continue to subject myself to that. The next book is one that I don't even like talking about because it makes me angry. It is The Plight Before Christmas by Kate Stewart. I remember the author's name because this book has really stuck with me as being really bad. I read this for the vlog where I was trying to binge a bunch of Christmas romances so that I could get into Christmas spirit, and honestly, this brought my Christmas spirit down so low. I became a Scrooge, I became a Grinch. My heart actually shrank multiple sizes because of this book. This book is about a woman who is in her late 30s. I think she's like 38, and she's single and she works in marketing, because literally every main character of a romance book works in marketing. And she has recently got passed over for a promotion and a raise, and she's really sad about it. And then also she's kind of like single as fuck, so she's just sad in general about her life. And so she's going to spend Christmas with her family, and she finds out that her brother is bringing a coworker with him because he didn't have anywhere to go. And so when she gets there, she discovers that this guy is her college boyfriend that broke her heart, and so it's sort of like a second chance romance. And that plot doesn't sound that bad, but the book itself, the writing, it's a no from me. It was a red flag. It is very evident to me that Kate Stewart has some pretty concrete ideas about gender roles and how men and women should act in a relationship. It was very man do this, woman do that, and it switches between the perspectives of the girl and the guy, but it just wasn't something that I was enjoying. Like, I didn't really like their perspectives. There's this one scene where the main character is giving her sister advice about her marriage. I don't really know why her sister was asking her for marriage advice, because she's 38 and single and her sister's been married for like 15 years, but apparently she needs to know what her little sister thinks. So they have this conversation where the main character is trying to tell her how to like zhuzh up her marriage, and she gives her like this whole speech about how she needs to surprise her husband with a blowjob and treat him like a man in the bedroom because he's just like a primal ape. He's like a lion, and she needs to honor that. And because he's a really hands-on good father and he like takes out the trash and does the bare minimum, it's a real drain on his testosterone. That's literally something she says. Like, she's like, he does XYZ, therefore his testosterone is being depleted, so you have to treat him like a man in the bedroom. And it's really creepy because when she's telling her sister this advice, the guy main character is overhearing it and like getting an erection while she's talking, because he keeps like picturing her giving him a blowjob in college. Like, whenever we were in the guy's perspective, he would think back on their relationship in college and he would always think about sex between the two of them. And so it was just like hypersexual, and I didn't really get like the romance vibes between them. So yeah, overall this book was just like weirdly conservative. Like, I feel like if it were to vote, it would be Republican. The next book was unfortunately another Christmas romance. I DNF'd quite a lot of Christmas. We actually have one more to talk about after this, and this was The Holiday Trap by Roan Parrish. I really wanted to like this because it is a queer romance. It has both a sapphic romance as well as a gay romance, and I just really wanted to be on board, but unfortunately it felt so flat for me. It was so boring. In this book we have two main characters, Greta and I don't remember the guy's name. I always forget his name because it's a weird name. His name's like Lincoln or something. I'm gonna call him Lincoln, but that's not his name. I'm just gonna say it. I'm telling you right now, I know I'm wrong, but I'm gonna say Lincoln for the sake of this synopsis. So essentially we've got Greta and Lincoln, and they live in separate states. Greta lives in Maine and then Lincoln lives in New Orleans, and they are both just like not having a good time during the holidays. Greta's really upset with her family because recently they did something pretty homophobic to her, and she just sort of wants to get out of her small town in Maine. And then Lincoln, again, I know his name's not Lincoln, I'm just calling him that for the sake of this video, recently found out that his boyfriend of 1 year is cheating on him. So both of them are just holiday blues, not feeling very good. And so their mutual friend sets them up and gets them to switch houses. It's very much like the movie The Holiday. And so in these respective towns where they travel to, they both find a love interest. It was boring, and I did not like either of the romances. It was very slow, and because you kept switching perspectives, you didn't really get like to really know all of the characters that well, and I didn't love really anything about it. And I very particularly hated Karis, the girl that Greta starts dating. I really didn't want to finish this and rate it low because the representation in it was good, and I just felt like I didn't want to be a Grinch and do that. So I was like, better to DNF, talk about it in this video and let it go. Next up is the final Christmas book that we can talk about. This one, so bad. Like, if I hadn't DNF'd it and I finished it, I probably would put out my worst of the year, and that is A Merry Little Meet Cute by Sarah Simone and Julie Murphy. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people liked this. Don't hate me, besties, but this book, so bad. Everyone in this book is so fucking horny. I know when I'm going into a smutty romance book, there's gonna be smut, but this one took it to new heights. It was just so much sex talk on every single page. Like, this book is over 400 pages long, and I probably read like 200 of those pages, and I swear to God, if I counted how many times they talk about sex, there's probably a reference on every single page. I literally thought I was going in for a cutesy Christmas romance, but I came out a depraved, changed woman going to hell. So in this book, we have our main character, B, who is an adult film star, if you will. And she gets cast accidentally in a Hallmark type movie for the holidays. And so she's trying to hide the fact that she's a porn star. And so she's on set trying to like be this new actress, but she's also trying to hide that she's like a big like OnlyFans star and like has, you know, done a lot of like sex on film, which is all cool and great. One thing I really liked about this book is I feel like it was really normalizing sex work, and that's super cool. And then B was also a plus size character, which I absolutely love. So those two things were really great. I really loved that about this book, but the writing and what happened in the book could not save how I felt. It could not. I did not enjoy it. I don't know if it was like Sarah Simone's influence or what, but she loves an erotic book. I've read one other book by Sara Simone before, and she's pretty obsessed with sex. So I feel like it was her influence coming through, because I know Julie Murphy is known for like writing YA before this. So it was just a very spicy book. Like, it was a ghost pepper, if you will, like too spicy for me. And that's saying a lot because I love sex, but I like there to be more plot. And yes, they were filming a Hallmark movie like during the book, but a lot of it was about sex. The main guy in this is an ex-boy band member. It kind of gave like One Direction, Backstreet Boys type vibes, and back in the day B was like a huge fan of him, and so quickly we find out in the book that he was her like childhood celebrity crush, and then she is his favorite porn star, and so they already have like a preconceived attraction to one another. So right when they meet each other, like sparks are already flying, but it was like from like page 1 they want to fuck each other. Like there was no build up, there was no getting to know one another. Literally in the scene where the guy meets B, he has an erection, and I totally get that because he watches her on the book's version of OnlyFans all the time. He probably associates her with like jacking off and like sex, so that kind of makes sense that his immediate reaction would be to get aroused, but it just wasn't cute. It was just really horny. Like every day this man would jack off with gingerbread lotion. Like that is on page. Like I had to read about that man touching himself far too many times. Are you not raw, man? Like, are you not rubbed raw? Also, I feel like you should not use fragranced lotion when you're masturbating. I feel like that's a fragrance-free sort of like hypoallergenic situation. Like I don't know if you should be like rocking with some like hotel Bath and Body Works shit. Like he was just like going off on his wheelie every day. Sorry that I made that hand motion, but that was like unbearable to read. Like I really feel like he did that at least 12 times in the book, and then they just like want to fuck each other from like page 1. Like it's like so annoying, and then they can't have sex because they're filming like this Hallmark movie, and then the whole plot line of B trying to hide the fact that she's like an adult film star makes no sense, because I'm sorry, if you post yourself naked on the internet and anyone is smart and knows how to Google, if they see you in a Hallmark movie, they're gonna connect the dots. Like her whole reasoning is like, oh, like I'm going on this like Hallmark movie, like nobody who watches the Hallmark watches my porn. Girl, they're probably your #1 clients. They are probably your top paying, top tier OnlyFans guys that just like hide it from their wives. Like let's be honest, let's be serious. And overall, I just feel like this book really wanted to do some like cool things for representation, but I feel like it did it in such a way where it almost like made everybody into a caricature. Like even B being a sex worker and just thinking about sex every second of every day and like being so into sex felt kind of disingenuous, because to my knowledge, not every person who's a sex worker loves sex and like talks about sex every day all day. Like obviously sex positivity is great, and that is good that the book was doing that, but I felt like it was kind of like minimizing her as a person, that it was all about like her job and that she loved being sexy and having sex and sex. Like I don't know, bad vibes for me. Like just too horny. Everybody needs to go to horny jail. I'm sorry. The second to last book we're going to talk about is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This unfortunately was just very much not for me, not for Sarah. It was not written with me in mind. So in this book we have our main character. She's college age and her brother takes watching over her very seriously. I think something happened in their childhood and they're really close, and he just always wants to make sure that she's okay, like her big brother. And so he's about to go away on a trip where he's gonna be away for like a long time, and so he asks his best friend to watch over her, and so the best friend takes it like really seriously. He literally moves into the apartment next to her so he can like watch what she's doing and like take care of her. And so the very start they don't like each other. Like their build is just like hating each other. He's like this playboy, he's sexy, everybody like thinks he's the best. He's also like a millionaire because he like sold an invention when he was like 13 years old. It literally makes no sense. You will have to suspend belief if you want to read this book. It literally opens on a scene where the girl is like waiting in the rain. She got caught in the rain trying to pick up a cake for her brother's going away party, and so she has to call the guy to come pick her up so he can bring her. And when he picks her up, he's like, you shouldn't wear that. Like he's like slut shames her for what she's wearing because it's like raining on her, and I think her like nipples are showing or something. So it's like really weird from the get-go. And then there's this other scene after the brother asks him to watch over her where she's doing this like boudoir photo shoot with a photographer friend, and he finds out that she's doing that, and he shows up on set and breaks the guy's camera and tells her that she should not be posing like that for anyone like ever. And I don't know, it was like weird and controlling, like him constantly telling her what to wear, who she can talk to, like what she can do. And so I was just not loving the vibes. It was very much almost giving like bully romance to me. Like I know that's not actually the trope that it is. It's more like enemies to lovers, like they don't really like each other initially, but it was just everything I hate. Like I hate controlling men, especially in romance books. I unfortunately am very vanilla when I read romance. I don't love bad dynamics between couples, like especially if it's not billed as a dark romance. Like if it's billed as being romantic, I do not like when guys are overbearing and controlling and nasty and asshole-ish. So it just was not the vibe for me. So I had only read like 10-15% of this, and I just had to DNF because I knew this was going to be a 1-star and I was going to rate it so low, and everyone else just loves it. So I felt like maybe I should just leave the Twisted series to all you twisted motherfuckers who love it, because it's not for me. The last book that I DNF'd was The Vegetarian. This was one where I had to DNF it because I could see there was merit to it, but I was not vibing. It was not my type of book. This is a book that was originally written in Korean and then translated, and it's about this woman who decides to be a vegetarian because she starts having these like vivid dreams about meat and how meat is bad. And so a lot of the book is her weird dreams that she's having, and then her relationship with her husband as it's affected after she stops eating meat. I just didn't like it because a lot of it's written from the husband's perspective, and from page 1 that man just hates his wife. Like, he hates her. He's like, I married this woman because I was getting old and I needed a wife to take care of me, and now that she's not eating meat and she won't make dinner for me anymore, I'm mad. And then a lot of it was just like about that, and I don't know, there's probably something deeper you're supposed to get out of this book, but I was just not vibing, and I felt like I didn't want to be disingenuous talking about it, but I also felt like stupid not liking it. So I figured I should just DNF, leave it alone, and leave it to the girlies who love it, because this is a book that's well loved by a lot of people. But that brings us to the end of this list of books that I DNF'd this year. I am so sad that I DNF'd so many because I could have read over 100 books. I could have really broken a record for myself, but unfortunately I didn't make it. I will say reading 95 books is still breaking a record for me. I've never read that many books in my life. Like, that is so many in one year. Like, maybe when I was a teenager, but I didn't used to track my reading, so I can't really say. But as far as being an adult, 95 books, that is so good. I'm so glad that I did that this year. But yeah, so these books, they weren't it. If you've made it to the end of this video and you enjoyed watching it, feel free to use the rat emoji in your comment down below, because that's how I feel about these books. They're dirty rats that ruined my reading challenge. Thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.